Welcome to the Village Green NBTV show on the environment. I'm Nancy Gardner, your host. And today's show, I think we could call like a spaghetti western, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're here at the entrance to Banning Ranch. And many of you probably followed the saga of Banning Ranch. Well, as you can see, there's some ugly stuff here. It's an oil field, part of it. And we're going to explore various areas. We're going to see how the Banning Ranch Conservancy and the Trust for Public Lands has plans to transform all of this into not the good, bad, and the ugly, but the good, good, and the good by making it an open space with restoration aspects to it, lots of access. So we're going to be on quite an adventurous trip today. So here we are, and this is a great spot. Oh, I should say, here we are, and I'm with Suzanne Forrester and Paolo Perrone. And this is a great spot to see sort of what Banning Ranch encompasses. So, Paolo, give us some landmarks.
So just on the edge here, you'll see the Santa Ana River. That is one of the boundaries. It comes along the Army Corps of Engineers wetlands here and all the way up to Talbot Park to the north there. So quite a large expanse. 401 acres in total, and we will be acquiring, preserving about 384 of those.
Okay, so then are these considered the wetlands down here?
Correct. So there's a mixture of tidal wetlands through the tide gates on the Santa Ana River, as well as some freshwater emergent wetlands that exist from the rainfall that comes off the property.
Okay, but everywhere you can see some great views. You can understand why people thought about building houses here, Suzanne.
Right, absolutely. And I just wanted to make one comment about the environmental benefits of the wetlands. I don't think people are aware that the wetlands actually trap floodwaters and they protect against rising sea levels. All you need on a property is 15% of wetlands to reduce peak floods. By 60%, Banning Ranch has 134 acres of wetlands and can reduce it by over 30%.
Well, that's great because I remember when Fountain Valley was all flooded because of the Santa Ana River getting a lot of rain and everything.
Right.
Now, the other thing that I notice here, you see some lovely views, you see some nice property, but as everywhere on Banning Ranch, it seems, there's a lot of junk.
Yep. So the property has been an existing oil field since the 1940s. It was part of the war effort, so a lot of oil infrastructure was put in place then. It still produces today. As part of the purchase, the landowner will remediate the property completely and remove all the oil infrastructure as part of the purchase that we planned.
Okay, so but there will be a consolidation. There'll still be some oil activity. Is that correct?
About 17% will be consolidated. 17 acres, sorry. Yeah, will be consolidated.
So, and that'll be in just one area?
Correct. It'll be in one small area with its own separate entrance. So the primary entrance on 17th Street will benefit only the Park and Preserve land.
Okay, so that means, wow. Now, when you remediate, you've got to take out all the stuff, first of all. You got to take the infrastructure out. Now, is there then a lot of soil stuff you have to do as well?
In this case, no. Asphaltic material is actually not a toxic substance. It's mostly just capping of the wells. There will be very minimal soil removal.
Well, great. I mean, that makes it a little less expensive for one thing.
Yes, that's wonderful news. Less damage to the habitat. That's terrific all the way around. And we'll have lots of partners for restoration. UCI Nature, we hope, and TPL's Park Group, and it'll take a village to do all that restoration.
All right, well, let's talk a bit about restoration because it's a word thrown around a lot. And I know one of the issues has often been, say, with a mitigation project, that they come in, they do the work, they monitor it for a couple of years, and they walk away and sort of it disintegrates. So say, this area, I mean, this is obviously an area that's seen a lot of traffic. So what sort of things would you do in an area like this to not only improve it, but to ensure its continuity?
So I'm not a restoration ecologist, but I think the key here is that you have so many partner groups like the Banning Ranch Conservancy, as well as state agencies that are really invested in seeing successful restoration here at Banning Ranch. Whereas in mitigation projects, it's often a key step in a larger development or other project, and it's just simply there to be done. Whereas here, I think there's so many groups whether just neighborhood folks or organized groups like the Banny Ranch Conservancy that are here for the long haul, and they're very vested in seeing that restoration success.
Well, that's great. And boy, one thing I do notice is a lot of natives.
Yes, there are a lot of natives.
I mean, so often when you find a degraded area, you see nothing but invasive species, and yet the great crops of cactus here. And unfortunately, I'm not a native plant expert, so I don't know the names of a lot of these, but I know them when I see them.
Right. Yeah,
There's quite a high quality assemblage of both coastal sage scrub and cactus sage scrub on the property. We know that for a fact, and we know that there are some endangered bird species that are already enjoying the benefits of that existing habitat.
Like the cactus wren.
That's correct.
Okay,
Right.
good. Well, let's see what else we can see. So, before we get started, it's interesting. I see at least 4 different kinds of tracks here of wildlife. I wish I were expert enough to identify them. I can see a bird, and I can see probably a coyote.
Couple of coyotes out here.
Yeah.
Multiple different species of birds. There's California gnatcatcher, South Coast willow flycatcher, the cactus wren that you mentioned earlier, and then there's more aquatic and shore birds in the restored Army Corps of Wetlands property right next door to us here, which a lot of what you see here could be also done on this property as well.
And we know historically we've lost something like 90% of our wetlands, coastal wetlands, over the course of all of our development of our state. So that would be quite an asset to be able to bring back and actually add to the amount that we have.
Yes, it'd be wonderful to have them all restored. And what Paolo, I believe, has said is that these have been restored by the Army Corps.
Well, those have, but he is also saying, could some of these lower areas also be incorporated to add to the amount of wetlands we have?
Yeah, and that is a fact that a lot of what you see here could be done on this property. And I think what's a lot of people understand that wetlands are a buffer against sea level rise and storm surge and flooding. What people don't think about all the time is that they are really important for species as juveniles, so a lot of fish and a lot of birds. They are reared in these wetlands. It's almost a nursery for a lot of the wildlife that we see. And they also sequester more carbon than any other habitat type, more than even forests, but we just don't have as many acres of them as we do forests. So really critical to climate change and for species.
Well, they also protect against wildfires. I didn't know that until recently.
Well,
It
yeah,
provides
water's
some
hard to burn.
protection. Yeah.
Well, I think the other part of it is, too, that given a chance, nature can restore.
Yes.
I mean, you think of over what we've done since, say, the 70s, when we really started to become aware of a lot of this, and that one of the Great Lakes was almost dead, the Hudson River was dead, and now,
Right.
great things have happened there, and they certainly could happen here. that different, and I think that's one of the other things that Banning Ranch offers. It's part of Orange Coast River Park's mantra is that you have these different ecological situations.
Yeah, I think, as someone who's been in conservation for 15 years, I've seen a shift in the thinking, which for a long time was about saving the last great places, these very iconic and beautiful spaces. And I think we've come a long way in recognizing that we actually need to look at some of our spaces that have had historic industrial and other uses and see where we can actually bring nature back into those places. So Banning Ranch is a perfect example of that, and one we really hope to engage the community and our partners on after we purchase the property, and then allow all the partners to look at the recreational opportunities as well as the ecological restoration.
Okay, well, since that came up, let's chat a bit about that. For years, it was let's buy, save Banning Ranch, let's buy Banning Ranch. And I remember I've told you that the city went out and looked for money and could not find any because the developer was going to pay and take a certain amount, so that was fine. And then nothing happened. Banning Ranch was shut down at the Coastal Commission, and so nothing. And we hear, oh, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? And then all of a sudden, I mean, it's not a sudden to the Conservancy because you've been working diligently, but you get an angel.
Yes, yes. Frank and his lovely wife Joanne had the vision to see what Banning Ranch could be, and what it could mean to the public as a park and preserve. They had the generosity, which was amazing, to make this dream come true for millions of people, literally millions of people in Southern California. We are going to now enjoy the wonders of Banning Ranch and the Orange Coast River Park because of Frank and Joanne Randall.
And then that sort of started the ball rolling. And obviously, you've got a lot of balls to roll yet, but you've had 2 announcements in the last month or so.
Yes.
About new donations, or not donations, but grants or something.
Correct. In addition to the $50 million that Frank and Joanne Randall so generously pledged, we secured an $8 million grant from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife associated with the wetlands and habitat on site. And then Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie Norris led an effort in the California State Legislature to secure additional $8 million from the governor's budget. So we have $66 million that is completely secure, and then we are looking to raise the additional $31 million to the $97 million purchase price. Most of those grants are already in process, and we're very confident we're going to get the vast majority of that, and we will identify any gaps and look to fill those with some additional philanthropy opportunities.
Okay, so if anybody's got some money they want to spend in a very good way, they can certainly contribute to the purchase of Banning Ranch.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Would love it.
Yeah. So and a timeline for it?
So right now we are looking to close escrow in June of 2022, so just shy of a year. And then there will be remediation on site that will take somewhere between about 18 months to 2 years. We're hoping that during that period we can really begin the community engagement, bring all the partners together, and so we can start to think about what could be out here, as well as providing some limited opportunities in that time. Because the remediation will occur sort of in phases on different portions of the site. So the hope would be that there would be some other opportunities to get folks out here before it's 100% remediated and cleaned up.
Possibly for restoration?
Correct.
Do you think?
Oh,
Because
well,
I have people lined up for
I was going to say,
restoration.
probably, I
Yeah.
know that, for example, the Newport Bay Conservancy, they have this wonderful, hardcore group of people who go out and are eager
We're going to be calling
you know,
on them.
tear out weeds and plant new things, and,
Yeah.
and they really have transformed a number of areas that we've looked at. So I'm sure
Right.
you'll have the same thing here.
Yeah, we would love to pull in groups like that too. That would be excellent. We're getting lots of volunteers already.
Well, that's
so.
great. All right.
Take you somewhere else?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is another of the wonderful areas, and we were just talking that there might be a potential for, and who knows? I mean, we understand you haven't done any community outreach at all because you have to wait until you actually have the property, but maybe some camping, little tents or something?
Yeah, so particularly the California Coastal Conservancy is interested in what they're calling low-cost coastal accommodations, and we do expect them to be a grantor to the acquisition, and likely that they will invest in the future with, again, potential for campgrounds on the areas that are already, used for oil operations and things like that.
That would be fun.
It would be great. And of course, we're going to have lots of trails and picnic sites and things like that. Lots of view sites, view opportunities.
Well, I mean, talk about a view. You've got, just to locate us completely, Sunset Ridge Park is right here. And there's always been a plan to eventually have a bike and hiking trail that would connect Sunset Ridge with Banning Ranch and make it more cohesive. And there's the Newport Pier, the ocean right there. This would be a great place to camp. And of course, camps tend to be dry, but have a glass of wine and watch the sunset before you're curled up in your sleeping bag.
Right.
That's right. Yeah, we really hope through robust community engagement, and we do have a coalition that supports the acquisition of about 25 members, including local homeowners associations. But we are really looking forward to getting to the point where we can engage with all different community members and really envision what could happen out on Banning Ranch.
Well, and you can see, but an area like this, that if you wanted to put some little areas for camping or picnic areas or whatever, you're not hurting anything. I mean, it's already been the damage, and then you have all the other areas that you could restore. But take a couple of these areas that are already plain dirt and compacted dirt. You probably wouldn't even have to make a foundation.
This is essentially a dirt road that we're standing on here.
Okay.
And on a clear day, without the haze out there, you can see Catalina Island straight out. And to the east, you can see Palos Verdes, and it's gorgeous when we've got those, that kind of visibility.
I bet. And talking about the clearness, and also we should talk about the season. You mentioned the fact that we are in summer right now, and that this is as dry as it is usually going to get. And, well, of course, we're in another drought apparently, but come the winter rains, this greens up a lot.
That's correct, and you'll see actually just behind us is an arroyo, and it's still quite green. So there's some willows and other riparian species in that arroyo. But yeah, I mean, in March, April, it's quite a different scene than it is now.
I wonder, do you get migratory, or as Monty Python would say, migratory, migratory birds in the wetlands and that sort of thing?
I do believe so. We are on the Pacific Flyway, and it is a very high-quality wetlands complex existing in the Army Corps area. And with restoration, I would imagine that migratory bird species would enjoy stopping by on Banning Ranch.
Yeah, ecologically speaking, there's lots of food on Banning Ranch for migratory birds. There's the vernal pools, there's the wetlands, and the other habitat. So definitely, it attracts them.
What do you do? And you may not know. You say you're not the restoration expert completely, but we have these areas with the dry, eroded, exposed bluffs. What can you do for that to keep them from further eroding, or do you just let them do their thing?
It's a pretty natural process here. I mean, if it were to impact some of the proposed infrastructure for trails and things like that, you could plant on them to help the root system secure those. But again, I think to a large degree, this is fairly natural. It kind of reminds me of what you see down on the beach at San Onofre.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the only suggestion I would have, should it become a problem, would be to let the local plant species hold it together with their roots.
In other words, let's go natural.
Yeah, love that idea.
Well, I mean, I do think we get carried away, particularly because of all the roads we build and everything, that we keep beautifying everything and say, this, just let nature take its course, and there'll be some barren areas and there'll be some very planted areas, and that's the way it should be.
I think that's right, and I think we should also remember that the restoration is going to be quite a long process, and it will be done in a way that we call adaptive management, which is to see how things go and respond as we see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's good, because I think in the past a lot of times you've had to say 10 acres and you go, phew, do the 10 acres, and then you go, oh, that wasn't quite the right plant for those 10 acres.
Yeah, and I think as you restore certain areas, the natural reseeding process will allow sort of the right balance of different plant species to fill in. Removing invasive species that are potentially outcompeting others, I think will go a long way to allow the natives to fill in, and might take a little less work than actually digging a hole for every plant.
Yeah. Well, and I did notice there is some pampas grass, for example. Got to get that out of here.
Right, exactly.
All
And
right.
I can tell you the Conservancy is very excited about the restoration.
Oh, I
There'll
bet.
be a lot of planning, and we can't wait to work with partners with lots of experience at this. So that'll be great.
All right. Are at the very dead end of 17th Street.
That's right.
And this, I understand, is what would be planned for the entrance to the park.
Yes, this is the logical entrance to the park. This is the one street that connects straight to the property, besides PCH, which would be a much more difficult access point.
And obviously you could put some parking here and not damage any any beautiful nature.
That's correct. So the existing oil operations sort of storage areas up here off 17th Street, as well as some of their administrative buildings. So yes, it would be one of the logical areas that you might be able to put visitor services, a visitor center, restrooms, parking, things like that.
And we know that there's always an issue of, particularly in residential areas, like, oh no, more traffic, but this has the beauty of not being a residential area.
Right, it isn't, and I don't know if traffic will be such an issue. It was, of course, with the development completely. I think that one of the other things we're thinking about here is maybe the visitor center. To start off with something modular, could that be in this area as well?
I believe so. Yeah, there's existing modular buildings here to service the oil operations, so that I think that's something to be considered.
Right.
But you've got a couple of blocks at least of just old commercial buildings, so that they would not, particularly on the weekend, as you say, nobody's around, so there wouldn't be an issue in terms of conflict of interest with the parking. Well, thank you so much for the tour and showing us, as I say, what is now sort of the good, bad, and the ugly, but what can be such a treasure for all of our
thank
residents
you.
and a lot of visitors that will come.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
the time.
appreciate it very much.
So, as you've seen from our trip today, Much of this is proposed to change, and we'll have a lovely park entrance instead of a bunch of stop signs in an oil field. Let's all hope so. And until next time, let's all work on keeping our village green.